Well, hey there, everybody. I'm Dan Davidson.
And I'm Bill Smith, and it's time for the news from TrekNews.net. Spanning the Alpha Quadrant. For all the news on all the Star Treks, yo. Wait, are you saying Dan?
Just keep going. Shh.
It's Trek. it's TrekNews.net. Online at TrekNews.net. Well, I guess that answers that mystery. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the news from TrekNews.net, the oldest brand new Star Trek news podcast from Trek Geeks, bringing you all the Trek news in 15 minutes or less for the week of November 17, 2022. Up first this week, Dan, and it's the only story to talk about, and it's the one that is surprising and yet not surprising at the very same time.
Yeah, that is true in so many ways, buddy. Yeah, today, ReedPop, the licensed producer of official Star Trek conventions, announced on their social media channels that Star Trek Mission Seattle, scheduled to take place on Memorial Day weekend in 2023, is canceled, ending months of speculation. It's hard to describe. Since it was announced at Mission Chicago back in April, there have been no guests announced, no tickets put on sale, and no updates on the con in general in any way, shape, or form. Earlier this week, we got some information from Alex Perry about a question that he had brought to customer service, and lo and behold, a few days later, now the convention is not happening at all. Hello.
Yeah, well, Alex had emailed customer service really to find out what the heck was going on because of those conditions you state there. No guests, no tickets, and we were 6 months away from Mission Seattle. He rightfully wanted to know because I'm sure there are plenty of people who want to know. Mm-hmm. ReedPop customer service replied and said that a convention they referred to as Star Trek Mission Chicago 23 was not going to happen and was essentially canceled. Now that caused some confusion amid fandom. Did they really mean Mission Chicago, not Mission Seattle? Mm-hmm. And a variety of questions. As it turns out, they made that statement this morning, which is pretty much what figured to be the case, and it's disheartening to say the least. Especially since there's going to be a giant non-Star Trek convention, wink, wink, in Las Vegas in August.
Yeah, absolutely. STLV, as it will always be called. I mean, I know it's not officially that name anymore. It's always going to be out there. I was really disappointed, I got to say, also in the official statement from ReedPop, or should I say the Star Trek Mission Twitter handle. They said, quote, "After careful consideration, the decision has been made to not move forward with the Star Trek Mission Seattle event in 2023. We are working on new ways to bring our favorite Trek fans the optimum experience, and we look forward to celebrating together again in the future." Now, that is a whole lot of nothing right there. Other than the convention being canceled, that is a big plate of steaming zero.
It absolutely is, and it's kind of a slap in the face to Star Trek fandom.
Yeah,
there are a bunch of people blaming Paramount. There are a bunch of people blaming ReedPop, and really, we don't know what the story is. We do know that Destination Star Trek, the convention, the official convention in Europe, mm-hmm. was canceled very abruptly this year. It's reported, I believe, by Trek Central. From somebody who used to work for that convention organizer, that con was actually canceled by Paramount/CBS. Whether or not that's true, I can't say. Mm-hmm. But that was the report that was made. Is it possible that that's what happened here? Yes, it is. But it's also equally possible that given the disaster that was Mission Chicago, mm-hmm. that either ReedPop is not in a place where they can produce it now, or they were told you're not producing this show by Paramount/CBS. Both of those, I think, are equally plausible.
Absolutely. We've talked about how we had a great time in Chicago, but from a convention standpoint, there were a lot of missteps. There were a lot of balls dropped, and it was not the experience for a lot of vendors and celebrities that we had hoped it would be. Like I said, we had a great time, but we knew there were lots of issues. That being said, regardless of who decided to go ahead with this cancellation, whether it's ReedPop, whether it's Paramount, CBS, I think it would be in their best interest to put something out soon so that this wave of conspiracy theory, negative comments, all kinds of BS that's going out on social media can be kind of nipped in the bud so that it doesn't suffer any more than it already is suffering. And I mean Star Trek right now, a lot of negativity right now because of what's going on. So I would hope that someone, even if it's a short little blurb, I think it would be a lot better than what we got from the Star Trek Mission tweet earlier today.
I don't disagree. I think that something needs to be said by the rights holder, which in this case is Paramount/CBS. I'm going to call them Paramount from now on because the corporation is Paramount, no longer Viacom CBS. You know, it's really kind of interesting. I mean, ReedPop is a giant events production company. They do Star Wars Celebration every year. They do various cons all across the United States. I have a hard time believing that they can't produce this show at this time. It tells me they don't want to produce this show at this time. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's just speculation. But I have no reason to actually believe that this show is being canceled for any other reason than apathy. I don't think they care. You know, when we were getting ready for Chicago, there was horrible communication from ReedPop. The communication we did get was contradictory and very confusing. And then on the ground in Chicago, you and I heard reports from various other vendors that that there was mass cancellations of vendors, that they weren't getting back to vendors. We heard a rumor that ReedPop wasn't attending conference calls. For that convention, that they would just not show up. There was a regime change, we believe, at some point because our rep for ReedPop was all of a sudden mysteriously not with the company anymore.
Gone.
And there was an entire management structure change. So I have to believe that the new regime, assuming that that's really what's in place, just has no interest in Star Trek. Because as a fan, that's really what they're making me believe.
It's what it looks like right now. And one of the questions that I have is, and I'm going to, before I ask the question, we have, us Star Trek fans have a fun little back and forth with Star Wars fans. What's the best one? Blah, blah. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're all great. They're both great. But I can only imagine that the Star Wars people right now are looking at the Star Trek stuff, just laughing their ass off because this is embarrassing. It really is. When you can put on such a show with the Star Wars franchise, the way that ReedPop has done in the future, it's really confusing and upsetting to see what's going on with what happened in Chicago and what is now not going to happen in Seattle. And I guess my question, that I was going to bring up is, has ReedPop done a Star Wars convention since Chicago? And if so, did it go off without a hitch? If not, do you think there's something bigger going on at ReedPop where it's going to affect all of the franchises?
No, they did Star Wars Celebration after Mission Chicago.
I wasn't
the
sure.
one where Ewan McGregor showed up.
Okay, all right. I wasn't positive.
It was a gigantic affair. There was great press. There was presumably great turnout. Whether or not it went off without a hitch, I don't know because I wasn't there, obviously.
Right.
I want to say that was in Anaheim this year, one of their key cities. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but you know, the fact that they either can't or won't get this convention off the ground is it's disgusting.
It is.
Now, it's entirely possible that this decision didn't rest with them. Could Paramount have gone to them and say, we're not doing a convention this year? Absolutely. If that's the case, and again, we don't know if it is, that's equally as disgusting.
Yeah.
Because this fandom deserves better.
Right. Especially with how many times have I said it's the best time ever to be a Star Trek fan, and people want to go out and celebrate their fandom, meet up with other fans, meet the cast, meet the special famous people, have a great time, buy merchandise, all these things. And now we don't have anything. That's really embarrassing. It really
There are 5 shows, 5 Star Trek series in production at the same time, in some form of production, whether it's, pre-planning, whether it's, shooting, whether it's post-production. There are 5 series in some stage of production at the same time right now.
Yeah.
That's never happened before.
Nope. And
now is the time to have official Star Trek conventions like you read about.
Right. And like I said, whether it's Paramount or whether it's ReedPop, someone needs to get out in front of it and say what's going on to stop the slow bleed of just negativity, because I know there's a lot of people out on social media today saying some really bad things about ReedPop and about Star Trek. Even Star Trek fans are saying stuff bad about it. Is it warranted? It might be towards certain level. Some of the stuff is completely off the charts, which I won't get into, but I think that someone somewhere needs to come out and say, look, here's what happened. We'll give you more detail sooner rather than later, but blah, and just say what happened so that we can have some kind of idea of what's going on and what to expect in the future.
I'm sure there's enough blame to go around between both ReedPop and Paramount. I'm sure it's some combination of the two of them. You know, I'm sure that no one is fully to blame. The question has been thrown about, well, does this mean Vegas will become the official convention? And that answer is probably not. And really, nor should it be. You know, Creation has been able to, or at least last year, threw a con with almost as many guests as they have any other year. Right. You know, over 100, I want to say 130 or some odd. And I'm sure it was a success for what they expected last year at a different location. Right. It's not inhibiting their ability. Plus, they don't have to clear every decision with Paramount like they would when they were the official con. And they don't have them micromanaging or even managing the situation. They can just run the show they want to run. So I'm sure they're in no rush to want to be the official con again, and I wouldn't want to be either.
Right, and if it does come to that, where they start having discussion, you know who's got the high ground, so to speak, to steal a little Star Wars quote from it. They certainly have all the right cards right now if they want to become the official again. And will it happen? Like you said, I tend to doubt it. I actually asked you that a few days ago. The more I think about it, the more it just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense for Creation to do it.
Well, and honestly, ReedPop is a contract. Unless that contract is nullified by either ReedPop or Paramount, they are the officially licensed producer of Star Trek conventions. Yep. So that mantle isn't going to be handed off to anybody anytime soon, I don't think.
I don't believe so either. And, you know, it's funny. We talked about the fact that when we were in Chicago, the whole idea of a moving convention was one that I was not a huge fan of.
Same.
And I'm wondering if that might have anything to do with it. I don't know. See, this is one of the reasons why we need to know what's going on, because who knows? Were they getting data that said that people, you know, weren't excited about it being on the West Coast if they're from the far East Coast? And if it was the other way around, if it was in Boston, we'd be hearing the same thing from people in California. Who knows if they had that kind of data and just figured it wasn't going to be something that was going to be worth their while? We don't know. That's the problem. We don't have any answers.
Well, I mean, let's look at the things we can verify. Seattle's a very expensive city to travel to. It's a very expensive city to visit. It's even more expensive on a holiday weekend like Memorial Day weekend when the convention was scheduled. And it's probably a guarantee that you were going to get a high West Coast attendance, but not very high from Middle America and the East Coast.
Absolutely.
Couple that with the fact that inflation is high, or higher than it's ever been in 40 years. And I think that probably adds a level of cost to their producing this convention that they didn't necessarily anticipate when they announced it.
Right. And I know that both you and I were scratching our heads when we're like, okay, Seattle, because we're in New England. Memorial Day weekend, what, do you not want me to remain married? I mean, it just made no sense. I don't know.
It's the unofficial beginning of summer, and what are hotel rates going to do in Seattle, which is already expensive? They're just going to go up.
Yep, that's true. That is true.
So, you know, that's it for now. As we've said on previous episodes, we're going all in for Vegas this year. We'll be there in style. We have some plans. It's going to be a pretty great show, and we hope that those of you who aren't going to Mission Seattle might consider Vegas if it's possible. If not, we totally get it. But at this point, what are we? I think 285 days to Vegas.
I haven't put the counter in my phone yet, so I can't answer that. I'm sure you have.
I transpose numbers. It's 258. My bad.
Oh, well, I'm disappointed in you.
Well, just add that to the list. Well, that's going to do it for the news from TrekNews.net for the week of November 17th. Remember, for all the news on all the Star Treks, please visit our great friends at TrekNews.net. Have a great week, everyone. Live long and prosper.
Coconut.